Hello, friends. It's Aunt Nikki of Your Story Hour, and it's time for Chapter 14 of Loony Coon. Chapter 14 Fun Spills and Porky Quills. Loony Coon, how do you manage to get cuter all the time? Loony Coon looked up at Ginny as if he understood her question and loved its flattery. We were taking moving pictures, and as usual, he was the star performer. The other members of the cast were back in the brush, and for the moment he had the stage to himself, a situation that suited his pride perfectly. He wore an expression that seemed to say, "Aw, it's easy when you know how. Have a look at this." Taking a position in the very center of our woodland stage, he sat on his haunches, his little fat tummy spreading out shapelessly, his head turned at a saucy angle, and his front paws hanging limply at his sides. He looked like some abbreviated edition of an Oriental idol. Our applause and the grinding of the movie camera were just what he needed to goad him on to his next stunt. Slowly and deliberately, but looking as if he were unmindful of what he was doing, he reached out with his front paws and took hold of his own hind foot. For a moment he kept feeling his toes, rolling them about between his front paws in that amusing way raccoons handle things. Do you suppose he knows that those hind feet belong to him? Jenny asked. That's just the way he does with a piece of bread or a grain of corn. Now what is he going to do? If possible, Loony Coon was sillier than ever. His left ear drooped more, his right one stood up straight, and his eyes looked up into the night as though he were looking at a flying pink elephant. Then his front paws started pulling at his hind foot. When it didn't come easily, he pulled it harder. The hind foot jerked back. Impatiently he grabbed it again and pulled. It turned to jerk away again, but he held on. It tried to jerk away again, but he held on and pulled until when, with supreme effort, he threw himself completely off balance and went rolling head over tail down a little hill. "Loony Coon, I can't stand it," Ginny laughed, holding her hands to her sides. But Loony Coon hadn't finished his act. He came back and searched all about, apparently looking for that hind leg or whatever it was that had tripped him over. Failing to find it, he assumed his idol-like posture once more. With the same silly look on his face, he began groping beneath him for that funny thing. I suppose he figured that's where it was before, and it ought to be there again. It was. While his eyes looked up at the treetops, his front feet took hold of one hind foot and tugged. The solo wrestling match was stirring, but brief. The front feet won, and Loony Coon went rolling downhill again. "Loony Coon, you're wonderful," Ginny cried when she could get sufficient breath. "Shh," I cautioned, as I readjusted my movie camera. "Don't praise him too much. If he ever finds out how valuable he is to my pictures, he'll demand a Hollywood salary. I couldn't afford to pay him what he's worth." "Oh, he doesn't have any ideas," Ginny assured me. "Raise his salary 1/2 pound of peanuts per night, and I'll give him a bonus of some homemade cookies. He'll be content. You see, he has no income tax to pay. He grows his own fur coat, nature furnishes him a mansion with a swimming pool, and he doesn't need a costly car." "Wait a minute." Ginny started towards the kitchen. "I have an idea." She put a handful of peanuts into a milk bottle, then tied a string about the neck of the bottle and hung it on the limb of a tree. It dangled within reach of the raccoons. I switched on the full floodlights and stood expectantly with my camera. At first, nothing happened. Several contingents of raccoons were now coming to Campbell's cafeteria, and that there were the usual feuds to be settled before they could give their attention to anything else. Big Boy came, but he didn't stay long. Andrea and her whole family took out after him. They ran him right off the island. Dignified Lady was there with her 3 cubs. A new family came timidly out of the brush, a mother with 4 young. Ginny identified Racket, a raccoon we'd known for years, and Clubby, a fast-moving male with one mutilated foot. He had been a visitor for several seasons, but we never really gained his friendship. Altogether, there were 16 customers this August evening. Blondie was the last to put in an appearance, and what an appearance! Hobbling along on 3 legs and holding his stub leg up, he moved unhesitatingly and confidently right up to us. "Such a fat raccoon!" I exclaimed. "Blondie, old top, you don't need any sympathy, do you?" "Not a bit," said Ginny, stroking him. "He has more fun on 3 legs than most coons do on 4. Why, Blondie, you're getting to be as wide as you are long. Here, have a peanut." She offered him this much-favored bit of food, but he refused. "What's the matter with you, Fussy?" she said. "This is a peanut, you remember, your favorite." Blondie took the peanut from her, laid it on the ground at his feet, and looked up with a begging expression. I offered him a piece of bread, but he still refused to eat. We gave him a pan of dog food. He sniffed at it, but not a bite did he take. "I know what he wants," Ginny said. "I baked today, and he got wind of those cookies and cake. Nothing doing, Blondie," she addressed the coon. "You're much too fat right now. We've spoiled you, that's what we've done. Eat this food. It's better for you. Here, any dog in America would like a chance at this dish." She pushed the pan towards the reluctant raccoon. Blondie wasn't impressed by the knowledge of what some dog would like. His kind isn't especially fond of dogs anyway. He pawed at the dish, caught it with his claws, and turned it over, spilling it all over our steps. Then he sat down and looked at Ginny. "Don't look at me that way, Blondie," she begged. "I can't stand it." Blondie knew she couldn't. He was putting on an act and doing it well. He had done it before and would do it again every time those good baking aromas came from Ginny's kitchen. The longer she coaxed, the droopier he became. He looked more and more pathetic, while Ginny cringed under the pressure of sympathy. At just the strategic moment, he raised his stub leg and waved it slowly towards Ginny. That did it. Ginny fairly flew into the house and rushed back with a plateful of cookies and cake. "Take it, you brute!" she exclaimed as she placed it before the triumphant Blondie. "You know how to work me, don't you? I could skin you alive for it. But if you want any more cookies, just let me know." If a raccoon can smile, Blondie did. Taking a big bite of fresh cookie, he looked up at me with something that resembled a wink. "You're pretty dumb, old top," I commented. "Dumb like a fox. I'm studying your methods. Maybe I'll try them and get some of those cookies myself." "No, you don't," Ginny warned. "I have to save them for Blondie." Our attention was now drawn to Loony Coon. He had discovered the milk bottle. It fascinated and frightened him. The peanuts he recognized, but what was that thing they were in? He advanced cautiously towards the strange contraption. When within a few inches of it, he lost his nerve and backed up. The bottle didn't talk back, so he moved towards it again. This time he touched it with his nose. Just at that instant, Blondie stepped on the cookie plate and upset it with a loud clatter. Loony Coon almost jumped out of his hide, disappearing into the darkness. It was some minutes before he could regroup himself for a fresh assault. This time the battlefield was quiet, and he became more confident and bold. He wanted those peanuts in the worst way. He bit the bottle. He scratched it, growled at it. He wrestled with it. But still the peanuts remained undisturbed, and the glass bottle hung complacently. "Loony Coon," called Ginny, "if you look up at the top of the milk bottle, you'll find an opening. Maybe that will help you." "And hurry up," I requested. "I'm running out of film." Loony Coon didn't need any instructions or urging. His inquisitive front feet had already reached up and found the opening in the bottle. The trouble was the opening was above his head, and he couldn't reach into it with his paw. Nudging the bottle with one foot, he pushed it far to one side, striving desperately to reach inside with the other foot. Presently it slipped from his grasp and swung on the string far away from him. His curiosity turned to fright when the thing changed its direction and started back at him. Unable to believe his eyes, he watched it come on until it struck him right on his floppy ear. He jumped, turned a flip, and vanished into the woods. See if you can see the picture. There he is. We didn't see him again for an hour. His sudden flight frightened all the other coons away too, all save Blondie, who was still too contented with his cake and cookies to get excited about anything. Big Boy emerged from the woods now. He looked about the feeding area for his competitors. Finding himself in possession of the place, he walked calmly up to the milk bottle and surveyed the situation for a moment. Then he unhurriedly and deliberately chewed the string in two and let the bottle down onto the ground. Now he could reach into the bottle and get the peanuts with ease. He had them all eaten before Loony Coon came back. One evening Andrea's circus was somewhat late in arriving. The other raccoons had come, but not one of our little family. Ginny was on the lookout for them. Presently she called to me with much distress in her voice, "Sam, Sam, come quickly! Andrea's face is filled with porcupine quills." I went to Ginny and she directed my attention out the window to the coons. It was as Ginny had said. One side of Andrea's jaw had 20 or more quills in it, and there were others sticking in her nose. "What can we do?" Ginny asked. "The quills will just get deeper and deeper, won't they?" "Yes, they will," I agreed, much disturbed. "I'm not sure what we can do. Perhaps I can catch her in a net and remove them." It was the only idea that came to me, but I knew it was not an easy solution. Friendly as Andrea was, she would fight such treatment. Once I saw 4 men take porcupine quills from a baby raccoon, and it required their combined effort to hold the creature. The strength of these animals when they are under stress is amazing. "I'll need help," I said. "Perhaps Ray will come and Dick. You keep track of her till I return." I hesitated off by boat to the mainland and by car to get my friends. It took nearly an hour to round up the men and some strong net equipment. When we got back, Ginny met us, smiling. "What's happened?" I asked. "Where's Andrea?" "Come and see, all of you," said Ginny, much happier than I had expected to find her. At the edge of the brush we could see Andrea with her Loony Coon. To our utter amazement, the cub was pulling out the porcupine quills. Already Andrea's nose was free, and most of the quills were out of her jaw. She was licking the side of Loony Coon's head while he continued his working. "Wuzzling!" I exclaimed. "Yes, wuzzling," Ginny agreed. The next night when we saw Andrea, there was not a quill left in her face. Take care. See you for the next chapter.